Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Diverse Goddess. It's Hannah, and on my channel I talk about diverse topics. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the new year, 2021, goals and things to think about. So yes, welcome back everybody, and I hope everybody had a happy holiday season and also a happy new year. And we are saying goodbye to 2020. Now I know for a lot of people 2020 was a very trying year, and that's because we all had something very viral that hit all of us kind of out of the blue, and we kind of had the rug pulled from under us type of feeling. And we all know what that was. That was COVID or coronavirus of 2020. And we're kind of still in that period. But was it really out of the blue? Now, in the first videos that I ever shared on my channel, I talked about the coronavirus from the jump, basically. And I did talk about how the coronavirus was a collective manifestation of humanity's consciousness or lack thereof. So basically, it is the energy that has compounded for years and even decades, and it eventually manifested itself into a physical disease. And what exactly was compounding for years and even decades is basically humanity's unconsciousness. Now, the word disease literally means dis-ease. It means to not be at ease, which then creates disease. So that tells me that humanity for a very long time has been in a chronic state of dis-ease. And so the collective consciousness of people is vibrating at a very low level or low energy field. And on this channel, I always call that lower vibration the seed consciousness. So don't think of it as something ugly when I say lower energy or lower vibration. I just mean that most people's state of consciousness globally looks like this. They're in a state of fear, grief, loss, low self-esteem, resentment, anger, self-hatred, outward hatred, confusion, self-doubt, being guarded, being weary. There's a buildup of childhood trauma or a buildup of trauma in general. So a lot of people are just living their days and even their lives on autopilot and living like robots basically, and they never take the time to slow down. So if this is the dominant state or feeling that most people are in, do you think this is a healthy way of living? Do you really think the average human can be healthy having thoughts and feelings like these, and holding on to them and never letting them go, or never healing or finding out why they feel this way, or even questioning things around them? I also don't want to repeat some of my earlier videos that I did on the coronavirus, so I will just leave links for those videos down below. But 2020 wasn't all bad in my opinion. 2020 was actually a reflective year. It was a year that allowed all of us to stop and slow down basically. It was a year for all of us collectively to look inward, and it was also a year for us to reevaluate life, really. But being able to slow down is what most human beings on their subconscious level is truly craving. And so it was Source's way, or God, I usually call God Source. It was Source's way of kind of hitting us all with a reality check. And I do talk about spirituality a lot on my channel, and I know sometimes spirituality gets a heavy connotation, but I don't mean it in the heavy way that most people associate with it. I just mean it in the way that there's more to life than the physical reality, and there's always more going on than meets the eye or that we can visually see. Meaning there's always a spiritual element taking place whether we realize it or not. And in truth, there's a spiritual war always taking place that we're not always aware of. And in my coming videos, I'm going to be talking more about what I mean by this spiritual war. But let's continue this video. So 2020, even though it seemed like a tragic thing that we're all kind of put through, and we're all kind of still feeling the aftermath of a lot of it, it actually was a year that gave us a lot of potential. And since we're only about a week or a week and a half into this new year, if you are thinking about this coming year, 2021, I strongly encourage you to truly think about the type of world you want to live in. I also strongly encourage you to really think about what you want to stand for, and not only what type of world you really want to live in, but this is going to be the year to stand in your truth and to truly create the life that you want and be that person. Because this is going to truly be the year where that quote that says you have to be what you want in the world, or you have to become what you want to see in the world, this is the year to do that. Also, when most people start a new year, they always say something like new year, new me, or new year, same me. But either way, whether it's a new you or same you, this is truly going to have to be a year that's going to be a more evolved you. This has to be a year where we take the seed consciousness and we finally elevate it and make it become blossom. That is why at the beginning of this video I had mentioned the lower vibrations of the planet coming from feelings of, say, fear, low self-esteem, self-doubt. Because in order to become more evolved, you have to deal with your fears. You have to deal with your traumas. You have to deal with your demons, basically, and overcome them. Because when you can overcome your demons and let them go, you naturally elevate your vibration. And what I mean by vibration is I mean your feeling state, how you feel on a day-to-day level. So if you're feeling down most of the time, like say you have fear, self-doubt, low self-esteem, any of those, that's a lower feeling. Hence lower vibration, because it's not a very empowered feeling. And when you are in a state of lower vibration, you allow the lower energies of life to basically take you over. And I will go into more details about what I mean about all of this in my upcoming videos as well. But this year, I encourage people to become more aware of their feeling state, meaning how they feel on a day-to-day basis, and to talk themselves through it. So if you are in a state of fear, talk yourself through that fear. Get to the root reason why you're in that feeling state. If you have low self-esteem, talk yourself through it. And when you talk yourself through it and get to the root of why you feel the way you do, especially if it's not an empowered feeling, of course the answer and the reason is going to be different for everybody, but most people's negative feelings or even fears come from a feeling of lack and also memories of the past. But most everything boils down to a feeling of lack, or the lack of trust that you have on your own capabilities as a human being. If people were more confident in themselves and confident in their capabilities and could trust themselves to be able to face whatever comes their way, there would be less feeling of lack. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but people have to refine their confidence and retrust their capability. And this brings me to a quote that I always love that really illustrates what I'm trying to say. And it says, "A bird sitting on a branch is never afraid of the branch breaking, because its trust is not on the branch but its own wings." And that's what I'm trying to tell people, is they have to remember their own capabilities and not rely on the branch or external sources, because they are fully capable of handling anything that comes their way. And if anything should break or come undone, that they will be prepared and they have the tools already inside them. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but people truly have to tackle the demons that are keeping them from feeling empowered. And they have to find the source within themselves. And whatever feelings are not of an empowering feeling, to truly talk yourself through it and get to the root of it and evolve past it. And the reason why I encourage this practice for 2021, because it's probably the most important thing that you can do, not only to empower yourself, but you are going to need to empower yourself. Now, with that said, the other thing that I want people to think about for 2021, and that I also want to encourage, is this feeling of connection. Because a lot of times when something tragic happens or a pandemic happens, what is a natural reaction for most people is to go into a state of self-preservation or survival mode. So when people go into self-preservation or survival mode, it comes from a feeling of, I am alone, I must save myself. It's every man for himself. And which is a completely legit reaction or feeling to when something tragic or a pandemic happens. The irony is when you go into self-preservation or survival mode, that is also a lower vibrational energy. When people have this feeling of every man for himself, it creates this feeling of aloneness and vulnerability and even helplessness, because that is truly how most people feel. Because even though they may wish to connect with others, because when tragedy happens, that is also a feeling that most people wish to have, this feeling of connection. However, most people push it away in the name of survival. And especially in this pandemic, where they tell everybody to be 6 feet away from each other, wear masks, have barriers between each other, that also doesn't help, especially when they tell you it's for your best interest. And so again, I encourage people to not fall into this feeling of aloneness and create connectedness, because that is going to be the empowering energy to the feeling of self-survival or self-preservation. And I'm not saying to stop following the rules that they put out about being 6 feet apart or wearing masks or anything like that, or maybe I am. Actually, no, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm only here to encourage. So you can continue following the rules, but don't allow following the rules to stop you from connecting. So I challenge people to elevate their energy from a self-survival me mode into a we mode. Meaning make 2021 a year about connection and a feeling of us. Now, when I say connection, I don't mean you necessarily have to go up and hug everybody you see, or you have to violate the 6 feet rules or whatever rules are in place. But I do challenge you to find ways to connect with people even with those rules in place. Like for me, example, one way I'm doing that is that I use my social media to connect with people, to connect with you, and to share information. That's one way that I am sharing or creating connection. I am also staying in touch with people that I care about, and also reaching out to new people to create new friendships. Now, one of the reasons why I talk about connection or even encourage connection for 2021 is because, for one, not only will it help you not feel alone, but it's also actually one of the reasons why we're even in this situation as a humanity, and why we even have this pandemic to begin with, is because of the lack of connection that we truly feel. And the first lack of connection starts with yourself as an individual. And so this disconnection that people feel with themselves on a soul level or as a human spirit is where it needs to start first. And that's why I talk about in the beginning of this video about tackling your demons. So if you can tackle your demons for 2021, that'll create the connection you need for yourself, to empower yourself. And then in that empowerment, because you are reconnected to yourself, that'll naturally reconnect you to everyone else. Now, I want to end my video today by sharing a Chinese parable that illustrates my point and why I'm emphasizing this need for connection and why it's so important. So I'm just actually going to read the story, or the Chinese parable, called Heaven and Hell, or more specifically, it's called Heaven and Hell, the story of the chopsticks. And like I already mentioned, I'm sharing this with you guys because it really does illustrate beautifully the impact of what connection can truly do. And so here we go. So the story goes like this. A curious man once asked to visit heaven and hell, expecting hell to be a terrible, frightening place. He was amazed to find people seated around a lovely banquet table. The table was piled high with every delicious thing one could possibly want. So the man thought to himself, perhaps hell isn't so bad after all. Looking closely, however, he noticed that everyone at the table was miserable. They were starving because, although there was a mountain of food before them, they had been given 3-foot-long chopsticks. So there was no way to carry the food from the table to their mouths with such long chopsticks. And so no one could eat a single bite. So it truly was a situation of being in hell. The man then said, I have seen enough. I now want to see heaven. So the man was then taken to heaven, expecting to see a completely different situation. But to his surprise, he found this same exact situation that he had seen in hell. People were gathered around a banquet table, piled with food, and all the diners held a pair of 3-foot-long chopsticks in their hands. But here in heaven, everyone was happy, everyone was full, and everyone was able to eat the delicious food. Now, before I read the end, I want you to just sit with what I just read for a minute. Because basically, heaven and hell were the exact same situation. They had the exact same circumstances. Except in hell, everybody was starving and miserable. And in heaven, everybody was full and satisfied. So how is that possible when the situations were exactly the same? So the answer is, or the difference of heaven and hell was basically those in heaven that were seated at the table were using their extra long chopsticks to feed each other. They used their long chopsticks to basically feed the person across the table from them because they could reach that far. Because in hell, they were using the chopsticks to self-serve. They were only trying to feed themselves. So this story truly illustrates what I'm trying to emphasize and the importance of connection. This is also why I emphasize for 2021 to become aware of your feeling state, which will help you to evolve and become more self-aware. Because like in the story, the circumstances were exactly the same in heaven and hell. The only difference was in awareness. In hell, everybody lacked self-awareness because everybody was trying to feed themselves, and so therefore everybody was in a state of hell. In heaven, they had that self-awareness, and they said, hey, if I feed the person across from me, not only will I get fed, but they will get fed too. A win-win. And so they understood connection because they were self-aware. So for this coming year, 2021, things to think about. Truly think about, like I stated, what type of a world you want to live in and what type of world you want to create. Do we want to continue creating a world that's hell? Or do we want to create a world that's heaven? And in all honesty, from the story that I read, the heaven and hell chopstick story, there wasn't even that much change that had to be done. All they had to do in hell was change the direction of the chopsticks. In hell, like I said, they lacked the awareness to make the proper adjustment. And so I'm going to end today's video with what adjustments do you want to make for this coming year? And what do you want the world to truly look like? And become that. And so on that note, I'm going to end today's video, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And in staying with the theme of connection for 2021, you can also stay connected with me on Instagram at Hannah Rokes, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!